You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the podcast. We have on an awesome guest today, screenwriter and author of the book, The Defining Moment, Christopher Riley. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Well, I had the privilege of reading it. I really enjoyed it. And before we kind of launch into some questions about the book, if you want to just give us a little bit of your origin story and what came about the book, we can go from there.
I started as a kid in the Midwest. I grew up in a town with the most exciting name of Prairie Village, Kansas. And when I told people I wanted to go to Hollywood and write movies, I felt like I was telling them I wanted to row a bathtub to the moon. It just sounded impossible. And it sort of was. I didn't know what I was doing. My wife and I moved to Los Angeles without really knowing anybody or anything. And I ended up with a job at Warner Brothers in their script department, reading thousands and thousands of scripts.
Wow.
Proofreading, formatting, and then writing on the side. And it took about 14 years to finally figure out how to tell a story in a way that actually would connect with people, make them feel something, and hopefully add up to something worthwhile.
Amazing. And that's really what the book is about, the defining moment. Do you want to just kind of describe what that is?
Yeah, Kathy and I had a writing mentor named Coleman Luck. He was a writer-producer on the old series, The Equalizer. And he had this theory that he taught us that we're each the product of a handful of moments that have defined us, that there are certain moments that have more of a lasting impact to shape us than other moments, and that if we could find that handful of moments for our characters, we could understand, for example, not only that they are broken and need to grow, but how they got to be that way.
Yeah.
Or where did they discover their genius or their superpower? Those kinds of things. So we know with Bruce Wayne how formative it was that he had that moment in the alley where his parents were killed.
Right.
And if you don't understand that about Bruce Wayne, you don't understand Bruce and you don't understand Batman.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. When I was reading your book and you mentioned the 5 or 6 moments that define your character, I'm a Star Wars geek. So I immediately thought about Anakin Skywalker because we've got, 6 movies, really. It may be 7-ish, but 6 movies of his journey from a slave boy, right, to leaving his mother, to his mother being killed by Tusken Raiders, to falling in love, and then having that be kind of, he has to hide it, and eventually having the betrayal in his mind of all of that. And I really see all of these defining moments, and I thought, oh, it's absolutely brilliant. When it comes to these defining moments, how many of them are you looking at before you're actually into the story versus how many were revealing during the actual script itself?
There's no exact number, but I try to think of maybe a handful, 5 or 6 that happen in backstory. And then I think of those pivot point moments of transformation over the course of a story.
Nice.
And it it can be one big moment that happens in the course of a film. It could be 3 or 4 moments. It's not every scene, because
No.
that becomes absurd if we think that a person is transformed in every scene. That would be emotional whiplash for any of us if that
Right.
happened.
Yeah. It would be like your character is like mentally unstable. So
That
yeah.
actually would be a funny story to tell.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. So when you're developing that character, come up with those transformations, those moments of change, and then bring in a couple more transformation moments during the actual script itself. And what I like that you mentioned is pay attention in the book. You talk about pay attention to moments of change, but not just in the story. What I like is you use your own life as an example. Like think back to what you've been through and really see those moments that really help define you as a person. And so then you had me doing some self-reflective thinking, okay, how did I end up this way? And it's a fascinating uh, process to do that.
Yes. So there is this connection between the storyteller and the stories we tell. And if we're willing to really look at ourselves and do that kind of therapeutic exploration, we come in contact with the moments that have shaped us. And
Yeah.
then those moments become touchstones that help us understand what kinds of moments wound a character, what kind of moments of healing look like, moments of discovery, of decision, of commitment. And so we're writing what we know, but not in a literal one-to-one correspondence.
Yeah.
But we're able to bring some genuine emotional authenticity to those moments we create.
No, I love that. I mean, really, if you're going to be a writer, you really have to know yourself, and you have to know your wounds. You have to know your strengths in order to write from them. You know, your weaknesses. And it made me think about kind of like universal truths that we've all experienced through our lifetimes. Like we've all experienced grievous loss, and then you talk about lasting wounds or a lesson learned. And, I've always called it universal truths, but I really like the way that you kind of list all of these different things that a character could be suffering from. But in essence, it's really anything that anyone has experienced.
It really is. And there are moments that rise to the level of creating this boundary of before and after. And we often will talk about life before the house burned down and after the house burned down, before and after the diagnosis or the divorce,
Right.
Or the Oscar, right? And people will talk about getting that Oscar ruined my life. I haven't had my life ruined in that way yet, but but that's unexpected, and yet we think about that and we go, oh, there is a certain burden of expectation that then falls on you, and even that moment of success could create a boundary of before and after.
No, it makes a lot of sense. As you were talking about developing characters, you had mentioned what is the character's abiding desire? What do they long for? I think that is such a great way to really get to know and understand your character.
I think so. It's not novel to say we need to know what the hero wants, or for an actor to say I need to know my
Yeah.
scene objective. But where does that come from?
Yeah.
When I have an abiding desire to write stories for the screen and see
Yeah.
those connect with an audience, but I can rewind my life story to find the moment where that desire was born, and to understand myself as a character. It's really valuable to
Yeah.
locate that moment.
It is. You have to be able to ask yourself the hard questions. I work with students or other screenwriters, and I will just sit down and ask them. They'll give me the script. I'll read it, and it'll be missing some layers. And I'll ask them, well, what does your character want? Oh, well, they want to survive this. Well, why do they want to survive it? What's driving them? What's pushing them? What do they have to look forward to? I mean, survival is basic, but what else do they need? And then they start going, oh my God, and they start realizing what else they need, and they start developing those layers into the character. I just think it's actually great. But there's another question. You took it another level deeper that I thought was really good. And this is something I think writers should really ask themselves more is, why do we want to root for this person?
Yeah. I can see a character involved in all kinds of action, spectacular visual effects flying across the
Yeah.
screen. But if I'm not emotionally invested in what happens to that character, I don't feel the danger. I don't really care whether they survive
Yeah.
or not. So I think I need a handful of clues that help me say, "Ooh, you're in pain."
Hmm.
It's, you see somebody stub their toe and you kind of lean forward and go, "Oh, I know what that feels like. I want you
Yeah.
to not feel that." There is the nobility of, saving a cat, and we've thought about that and heard about that.
Yeah, of
But,
course.
but we'll root for a character who's driven and ambitious. We'll root for a character who's up against a bully. So
Yeah.
we root for underdogs, people who are oppressed. There are lots of reasons that we will root for people. And if we see a well-crafted film, all of those things are present and they clue us in that this is the one we're rooting
Yeah.
for. But it's invisible to us because it's done well, but it's not done by accident. And as storytellers, we need to do that craft work of showing the audience why this is the one who deserves your rooting interest.
No, I really agree with you. I think on a fundamental level, if you're a beginner writing, having your character save a cat or give to a homeless person or something like that, sure, that's easy. We can all do that. But creating a character that you understand who they are, I think is fundamental. I actually want to pick your brain on this. The argument I've noticed online is uh I have to like a character in order to root for them. And I don't agree with that. I think you have to understand the character's motivations. You can have an entirely unlikable central character and still be invested in their journey. But I want to get your opinion on it.
I think that's right. I think that if we are restricted to characters that we like, then we can't tell stories about the full range of human beings that
Yeah.
exist. Human beings are really interesting, and that's why characters are the most interesting thing that we have to work with. I agree with you. I think we have to understand, and we could say relate to the motivations of a character. I understand Michael Corleone needs to defend his father
Yeah.
after Vito is gunned down. I understand why he shoots a police captain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that myself, but I relate to those motivations.
Yeah.
And
That
um,
fundamental.
yeah, it is. Those are primal things. Blake Snyder talked about those primal motivations. I get that with Michael, and because the storytelling of The Godfather allows me to get up close to Michael,
Yeah.
I go on that journey with him, even though I probably don't want to have drinks with him. That would
Right.
probably be a terrifying thing. But I relate to him as a human.
I totally agree. I think of young adult who played by Charlize Theron, and she's a terrible character, like a terrible person. The character is awful, and they go on this journey of what you think is change. You think this character is going through a journey of change, and so you're getting behind this character's trying to become a better person, even though they're quite awful. But then at the end of the film, she doubles down and realizes, no, I'm a terrible person and I'm going to be even more terrible and selfish because that's my success. That is a path of change with her becoming, accepting who she is, not trying to be a better false person of who she is. I thought storytelling like that is quite brilliant, but you can't do that if you have to like every single character. So I think, yeah, it can really limit your ability to tell a broad range of stories.
I do think, separate from liking our characters, as writers, I'm intrigued by this idea that we need to love all our characters, and I think that's separate from liking them. I think if I have contempt for my characters, you're going to be able to tell that when you read them. And so, even with my antagonists, I don't feel that I write a lot of villains.
Yeah.
I do write antagonists, but that may simply be about my attitude toward my characters. I don't have contempt for them. Even the villains, I want to understand why they do what they do.
Yeah. When you find you're writing an antagonist, are you going through the same, building out five or six specific moments that really drove them towards that personality?
Yeah, I think sometimes with antagonists, it's even more important because there's this danger of just falling back on, well, they just do evil because they enjoy it.
Because it's fun or whatever.
Right. And I just haven't encountered a lot of people in my life who are straight up villains who do evil for the sake of doing evil.
Yeah.
I think that Vladimir Putin is doing evil.
Right.
But I think in his mind, he is fully justified. And I think he reveals in his speeches his thinking about why he's fully justified. That is a far more interesting character. And I think we can hold both things in tension, that his actions are devastating to people, and he thinks he's the hero of his story.
I think that's a fascinating comment because it's atrocious what he's doing, what's going on. But if you look at his speeches, to me, what I hear is a guy trying to preserve his legacy and go down in history as the savior of Russia from what he is saying. But what is happening in the Ukraine is heartbreaking and awful. So yeah, I absolutely understand what you're saying. Do you ever find that this process that you have developed will help avoid writing a character who is too one-dimensional?
Yes, because when I think about the moments that have defined a character, they fall into a variety of categories. So I'm finding out not only about how a character is wounded or broken, but how they discovered their genius or their strength or their superpower.
Love it.
I'm finding these complexities or contradictions within a character. I find that before I kind of went through therapy, and if I based a character on myself, it was a one-dimensional character, pretty much all saving cats all the time. and now that I have faced my own contradictions and the ways that I'm damaged, and I can draw on those things, I'm able to write far more complex, multidimensional characters.
That is fascinating. I mean, like I said earlier, you really do need to know yourself and who you are in order to write these, like you said, multifaceted characters. Now, if you're not comfortable answering this, that's okay. But I'll say for me, I'll write a script and I will have an emotional cathartic release to where I will be emotionally moved. I've been moved to tears before working on a project, and that's for an assignment. And I always wondered, okay, how broken am I that I'm working on the script? But then the producer will call me and say, well, I was moved to tears on page 45. And I was like, all right, well, so was I. So I don't know if you ever have a release like that, but again, I think it's something that you're dipping into the right moment of your character when that happens.
Yes, I love those moments when I come in contact with genuine emotion in myself. And there is always that concerned that maybe I'm the only one. So when you do get a producer who tells you, you move me to tears, that's fantastic. Or if you're pitching and you see a little tear in the executive's eye, you think, oh man, I've tapped into the power of story here. And it's the power of character and why we're so attracted to movies and stories in the first place, is they bring us in touch with our deepest emotions.
You just hope that, they're not having allergies that day or something. So
it could be that.
So Chris, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
That's an interesting question. I just would say that I would encourage my fellow storytellers to dare to dip into those moments that might feel emotionally terrifying and say it will not kill you to allow yourself to feel the emotion. It will feel like it might kill you, but it won't. It's like being at the beach. The wave washes over you. It might tumble you, but the wave will go back out to sea and you'll be standing in knee-deep water. You'll be okay. And then you will have this resource from which to tell stories, and it will feel scary to tell stories that connect with your own personal moments that define you. And you'll think, nobody else is going to relate to this. It's so specific to me. But the truth and the alchemy of story is that somehow everyone will see themselves in your defining moments.
Wow, that is really well said, sir. It does take a lot of bravery to be a writer and to open yourself up to that. And in the end, you really do need to know thyself. Chris Riley, the book is The Defining Moment. He is also the author of The Hollywood Standard. So that is an excellent guide on formatting if you need that as well. Hey, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter by using my handle @ScreenwriterPod. And if you liked the show, please support it by subscribing and sharing the episode on your social media.